Hello, my most amazing artists. Welcome to our lesson today. I hope you had a wonderful spring break. I definitely enjoyed spending a little bit of time outside. I took some bike rides. I read a couple of books that I really enjoy. And, I really am looking forward to hearing all about your spring break. You can comment on our Google Classroom, on Class Dojo, or fill out the forms on our class website. So today we are going to be working on a really fun project. It is a combination of printmaking, in the form of creating stamps out of simple materials like a toilet paper tube or a piece of cardboard, and using some black paint. You could use tempera paint, you could use acrylic, any paint that you have at home that's more of a thick paint like this. You will need a paper plate or a paint palette, just something to place your paint on, and a piece of paper, which I'm going to flip over because it's gotten a little bit of paint on it before we even get started, which is okay. But a piece of paper, you could use paper from your sketchbook, you could use copy paper, you could really use anything that you have. So these are our basic materials. And then once your piece dries, we're going to go back into it and add some color. So if you have paint at home, you can get either red or sort of a dark pink called magenta, blue or a lighter blue called turquoise, and yellow. And you'll also, of course, need a brush and something to hold your water. But to start, don't panic if you don't have all those colors. We're just going to use some black and we will get started. So, first of all, I'm going to shake my paint. If your paint is in a bottle like this, maybe even finger paint, you might want to shake it out just so that it hasn't settled. And we'll do a line of paint and then we'll do a little circle. Maybe a little more. So there is our paint to start. Now you're going to want to get a piece of cardboard. So if you have any boxes, Amazon boxes or anything like that that have this, what's called corrugated cardboard, it has 2 layers with sort of bent paper in between that creates a little space. That's going to make a really interesting stamp shape. But if you don't have that and you just have some regular cardboard, maybe like a shoebox or something like that, you can use that as well. But this corrugated cardboard with this texture is what's going to really be awesome. And then I think we probably all have a few of these around, maybe in your recycle bin, a toilet paper tube, or you could use a paper towel roll. You could cut it or just leave it long. Or anything else you can think of that has an edge like this that you can use as a stamp. But we are going to be making what's called an abstract design. I think we've talked about abstract in the past. Abstract is when you make art that doesn't necessarily look like anything specific. So it's more of shapes and colors and lines and repetition and pattern that you're spreading around and just enjoying the process of making art. So we are going to just play around with some patterns that we can make with this straight line and curved line. Now, if you want to create specific shapes or make a picture, that's okay too. So, I'm going to take my cardboard, grab it, my paint, and make sure you have something down, a messy mat or something so you don't make a big mess. And I'm going to use this side. This side is a nice clean edge. And I'm going to take it and I'm just going to very lightly dip it. I'm not going to glob it around, just lightly dip it in the paint. Make sure it's not going to drip. And then I'm going to take it and I'm just going to pick somewhere. Achoo, excuse me. Achoo, excuse me again. And I have created a line, and that's okay if there are a couple little dots here and there. It just makes it interesting. Now, I see that it's just a solid line because I've got a lot of paint on here. So the first lines that you make might be solid like this, but you don't have to dip the cardboard in the paint every single time. And as you use your cardboard stamp more, you might start to see a little bit of, there we go, texture, a little bit of a pattern. So play around with that. Make some shapes, and then when you're ready to dip it again, you can do that. Now I want to make some closed shapes. Closed shapes meaning that all of my edges touch so that there's an enclosed space here, because I want to be able to color those in later. So I'm going to make a few shapes. Now these are geometric shapes. Geometric shapes meaning they have straight lines and angles, and that's a little bit different than organic shapes, which are more wavy and don't necessarily follow any specific rules about what makes them what they are. Like a triangle always has 3 sides. A square always has 4 equal sides. Now, this isn't going to be a perfect square, of course, but it's square-ish, maybe more like a rectangle. Rectangle also has 4 sides with 90-degree angles. That's this angle. But all the sides are not equal. There are 2 equal on this side and 2 equal on this side. So that's a rectangle. Just a little shape lesson. If you already knew that, which I'm sure you did, then I appreciate you hanging in here for the review. Now I'm just going to make some patterns here, repeating this line all the way across. And I'm going to set my cardboard aside for a second, and I'm going to explore with my tube. So I'm going to take my toilet paper tube and dip it. See, I've got paint here, and I'm going to make some circles. And just like with the cardboard, I don't have to dip it every single time. I can see what happens as I use it a few times before I start to dip it again. So I can make interesting textures and lines there. Now I can also start to play around and see what happens when I move my tube. That was pretty interesting, right? Made kind of a smudged tube shape. I'm almost using my toilet paper tube like a paintbrush. Let's see, I'm going to put a circle inside here. Oh, that almost made a moon shape. Maybe I can take just one edge and roll it. And look, I made what looks like a moon. So like I said, you can make an abstract design that doesn't really look like anything specific, or you can use these shapes to create familiar shapes like I did, like a moon. So there's another interesting thing you can do. I have this piece of cardboard over here I can show you. You can bend the cardboard. See how it has these lines? You can easily bend it and create a shape. Here's a zigzag pattern. I'm going to put it in my paint over here. And then I'm going to take my zigzag and maybe I'll put it over here. Press it down. And there, I've made a zigzag. So that's pretty interesting too, right? I would love to see where your imagination goes with something like this. You could even squish the zigzag in, make it a little smaller. That made like a little smudgy pattern. So I made like a fat line there. take this, and you could even create lines, patterns, and start to explore what happens. And like I've been talking about in our videos, we're just looking at the process in a lot of these experiments that we're doing. So we're just playing and enjoying seeing what happens. I'm going to take my, let's see, I'm going to do this here. I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to turn it to the side and just see what happens. You never know. I'm not trying to control what magic happens here while I'm working. So I am going to just play around. And I can be very light with it, or I can press down really hard. Can, like I said, use my cardboard like a brush. Creating texture, creating patterns. I can even use the little corner here to make a little stamp. Just see what happens. Play around. So, I want you to really fill up your page. You notice that I've got something almost everywhere on my page. Filling up the space so that it feels really full. Everywhere my eyes touch, there's something to look at. I'm not just making my pattern in the center and then leaving everything blank. So, when you filled up your space, set your piece aside and let it dry. Maybe make another one just to see what happens once you're all warmed up. Earlier, before I made this video, I made another piece. So see, I have two here. If I have two, that means I've got plenty of things that I can work on. So this piece is almost dry. So there are a few different things that you can do if you'd like to add a little pop of color. If you don't have paints at home, you can always get out your crayons. And let's see, I'm going to find this glittery green, and I'm going to start to color in one of these spaces. Now my paint's not completely dry, so I have a little bit of the black paint mixing in there, but that's okay. I'm just playing around. So I'm just coloring in some of these areas, seeing what shapes have been created, what pictures maybe seem to pop out at me, what inspires me. So I really like that, but I want to talk to you about painting a little bit in this, and I'll come back with the crayons in a minute. Now, I suggested that you, if you have paint, get 3 colors. I'm going to use yellow, magenta. Ooh, this one's not even open yet. Look at this, I have to open it. Shake it up. Magenta and turquoise. Again, another one that's not open. Miss M, why weren't you prepared? All right. So I have these three colors because they can be mixed together to create a lot of other colors. You can use magenta or red, and you can use about any kind of blue and yellow to make our different colors. So remember that yellow, red or magenta, and blue are primary colors. Those are colors that you can't make by mixing any other colors. But when you mix these colors together, you can create the other colors. So yellow and blue equals green. I'm going to take some yellow and then wipe my brush, and then I'm going to take some blue and I'm going to mix them together and check it out. What a beautiful green color. So I'm going to take my green, and remember I have just a little on my brush, not a big blob. I'm going to take it and gently place it on the page, carefully. And remember what we talked about when you're painting, that you are keeping the brush on its tippy toes like a ballerina, not squishing it down, but tippy toes, painting very lightly. Got a little bit out of the lines, but that's okay. But I made this beautiful green color out of yellow and blue. And I'm going to rinse my brush so I can show you our next combination. Now, magenta or red and yellow equal, what do you think? Orange, right? So I'm going to take these and mix them together. And look at that, a beautiful orange color. I'm going to paint this middle area of my painting with this beautiful orange. And again, I'm keeping the brush on tippy toes. I'm not squishing the brush. I'm not grinding it around. Get more paint when I need it. And I'm filling in the space very carefully, making sure I work really hard to keep it in the lines. All right, let's see, get a little more and fill it in up here. So there's our orange. Now I'm going to rinse my brush and we're going to make our last combination, our secondary color. Colors that are mixed from the primaries are called secondary. You might know that. So, red or magenta plus blue mixed together. And look at this magic. It is a gorgeous purple. I'm really excited whenever I see these mixed together. It amazes me how beautifully it mixes. So I'm going to take my beautiful, perfect purple, and I'm going to paint this side of my square. Again, very gently, brush on tippy toes, carefully staying neat. Filling in the space. Not globbing my paint all over the paper, not going crazy. There's a time and a place for crazy painting, and we'll do it. But right now, we're just working on painting so nicely. Now, there's our beautiful purple. And if we wanted our purple to be more purpley, because that looks, now that it's on the paper, it looks a little bit blue. I can add a little more red or pink, magenta in, and it'll make it change a little bit. So depending on how much of each primary color you mix in, you'll get a different result, a different type of orange or purple or green. So now I don't just want to use the secondary colors. I'm going to use the primary colors too. So I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to fill in the circle here and here. But then I think I'm going to play around with this idea of color mixing. Rinsing my brush before I get a new color. Always remember that, especially with tempera paint. I'm going to take my blue and I'm going to paint it here. And look what happens when the blue overlaps the yellow. Turning green, right? It's like magic. I'm going to take and put some blue over here. Since I have another yellow circle over there, I want to have another blue one over here. Very nice job, guys. So what do I want to do next? I've still got plenty of blue on my brush, so I want to use it somewhere else. What shapes do I see? Maybe I'll outline here, turning my brush onto its side to get a skinny side. And I'm going to just go along, outlining this area. So again, I'm just playing, enjoying the process of making art, not trying to plan ahead or make it perfect. Because remember, perfect is not real. Perfect means that there's no imagination, no room for everyone to be different. So we just play around and see what happens. I want to do that purple again, but this time I want to make my purple a little more on the pink side. So I'm going to take some blue, just a little bit, and put it here. And then I'm going to take a lot of pink and I'm going to mix it. Now you see it's still becoming purple, but this purple is a lighter, more pinky purple. So I'm going to paint that here. And you see how it's different from this one? Made out of the same colors, just has different amount of the red and blue. I like that a lot. I'm going to do a little more. Very cool, guys. Very cool. Maybe I'll even take some of my purple and put it over here in this triangle. Hold my paper so it doesn't slide all over the place. All right, rinsing my brush. I want to use just plain magenta here. Or if you're using red, it would be just plain red. I'm going to take it and, maybe I'll do this circle. Just do this. So I'm just deciding as I go along what I think would look nice. I want each of you to really sit and look at the painting that you're working on and decide what you think will look the best. And everybody is going to have a different idea of what will make their painting look the best. So just see what happens. That's also why I say to maybe make 2 black line paintings first, so that you can really experiment and not feel worried about if you don't like the way something looks, because you have another painting. Now I'm going to take this yellow and I'm going to put it on this side. Because remember, our yellow and our magenta or red make orange. So when I blend it a little bit over the line here, do you see where there's a little bit of orange happening? Pretty cool, right? And I still have some yellow on my brush, and it got a little bit of magenta in it, so it's almost making a tiny bit of an orange color here too. So I just want to see what happens when you start to play. I'm going to set this aside and grab my other painting, the one that we made together, and add a little color to that while this one dries, and then I'll come back and add some crayon. How about that? So here is this painting. Tempera paint luckily dries very quickly, so we can get a lot done in a short amount of time. I'm going to rinse my brush. And again, let's go over this color mixing. When you mix yellow with blue, blend them together. I'm making sure I don't accidentally go over into the black paint here. Blend them together and you get green. Yellow and blue makes green. So take my beautiful green that I've made, and I think I'm going to put it in this diamond shape that I created earlier. Spreading my paint around. I notice that in some areas it's a little thicker, so I smooth it out. All right. Next, rinsing my brush. Yellow plus magenta or red mixed together. I think I need a little more yellow to make orange. Yellow and red make orange. So I'll take my orange and I think I'm going to make orange stripes over here. So I'm going to hold my paper down so it doesn't slide around. And I'm filling in these areas to make wonderful orange stripes, like a tiger almost. All right. So, and my last secondary color that I can create as I rinse my brush is my purple. So, magenta or red plus blue. I'll blend them together and I get my beautiful, beautiful purple. I'm going to take my purple and I'm going to fill in this square. I'm going to fill everything in except for my moon shape. I want to save that and do something else with it. Turning my brush to the side, using the thin edge to get into the smaller areas, and using the wide edge to fill in the bigger areas. And you know, sometimes these shapes can be a little bit tricky to work around, like these little zigzag shapes. So I'm just taking my time, being patient, making sure I really fill the space up with paint. Those areas that are looking a little thin, I go back over. All right, very cool, right? So, and again, on this painting, I will take some of my primaries and fill in some spaces. Maybe a circle here. Or going in, making some lines of pink here. Taking some yellow. And maybe I just trace along here. Trying to use all the paint that's on my brush before I rinse it so that I don't waste. And some blue. Maybe here. And sometimes if the paint's really thick, it might cover up the black lines, and sometimes the black lines show through. So that is also part of playing and learning and seeing what happens. All right, now I'm going to go back to my other piece and let this dry. I'm very happy with how this is turning out. So now that it's had some time to dry, I want to go back in and keep working with crayons. And boys and girls, the reason I'm showing you this is just to show you that there are lots and lots of things you can do with your art. You don't just have to use pencil or pen. You can use markers and crayons. You can use paint. You can really do anything. I'm just playing around, picking colors that I really like. I'm coloring dark to light. I'm making patterns. Maybe I'll do some dots. The important thing is having fun and really seeing what your heart is telling you to do to your artwork. So if you really love purple, maybe use lots and lots of purple. If you like the way the crayon looks better than the paint, maybe you just use crayon. You could even use marker if you wanted. See, I'm creating some lines with this. So I want to see what you do when you let your imagination run wild. And I really want to see what kind of cool, crazy patterns you come up with your cardboard. Oh, that doesn't even show up. But with your cardboard stamps, you can make shapes, you can make drawings, or you can make cool abstract art like I have. But just explore. Remember, with a simple piece of cardboard, you can create a line, printing a stamp, making geometric shapes, exploring pattern. You can use a simple cardboard tube to make circles. You can make them separate. You can make them overlap. Then, when your painting has dried, you can choose to use crayons to fill in some of the spaces, exploring pattern and texture. Or if you have paint at home, you can use the primary colors of blue, yellow, and red or magenta to paint and to mix together to create the secondary colors, which are green, purple, and orange. I want to see what you do. Share with me in the Google form, and I hope you have enjoyed this fun video. I really have. And you've got some cool artwork. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. Stay creative.